In this video, I am going to discuss about fixed, flexible and flex budgets. What is a fixed budget? A fixed budget is a budget that remains the same regardless of changes in business activity. In other words, a fixed budget is prepared based on a predetermined level of activity or sales volume, and it does not change even if the actual sales or activity level is different. Fixed budgets are useful when business conditions are stable and the company can reasonably predict its level of activity. For an example, a company that produces a fixed number of products each month, regardless of the level of demand or sales. Simply, fixed budget is a budget that will not be changed, regardless of changes in business activity. Here is an example for fixed budget. As you can see, this column contains the fixed budget amounts and this column contains the actual amounts. Actual amounts can be only obtained after the budget period, which means the actual performance have to be measured in order to obtain the actual values. Until then, budget amounts will be used. These budget amounts will not be changed until the actual performance are measured. As per this budget, budgeted sales units for the next period is 2000 units and the selling price per unit is $25. Using the budgeted sales units and the budgeted selling price per unit, they have calculated the sales revenue for the next period. And all the other costs are calculated based on the variable and fixed cost amount. So finally, they have calculated the budgeted profit for the next period. And after the budget period, they can obtain the actual figures. Now let's discuss about flexible budget. A flexible budget is a budget that adjusts to changes in business activity. Unlike a fixed budget, a flexible budget is based on different levels of activity or sales volume. Flexible budgets are useful when business conditions are unpredictable or vary significantly. For an example, a company that produces a variable number of products each month based on the level of demand or sales. Here is an example for flexible budgets. This column contains the fixed budget and these columns contain flexible budgets. Flexible budget 1 and flexible budget 2. Remember that we can prepare any number of flexible budgets as we need. So how we can prepare a flexible budget? All we have to do is we have to change the sales unit value. So for the flexible budget 1, we have changed the sales units value into 1500 units. For the flexible budget 2, we change it to 1900. Then we can extract the data from the fixed budget. So the selling price per unit will be $25 for both flexible budgets and then we can calculate the sales revenue. And then what we have to do is we have to use the fixed budgeting amount for the costs, for the variable cost, for the fixed production cost and non-production costs. Remember that management accountants will have all of these figures since they have prepared the fixed budget. Using these fixed budgeting amounts, we can prepare the cost for the each flexible budget. Always remember that when preparing flexible budgets, you need to be aware of the semi-variable cost and step fixed cost. As you can see, the fixed production overhead cost has reduced to 10,000 when the sales units have dropped to 1,500 units, which indicates a step down fixed cost. Likewise, you need to be aware of these little changes when preparing flexible budgets. So ultimately, you can calculate the potential profit for the flexible budgets. Why do management accountants prepare flexible budgets? This is because they can observe what will happen to the sales revenue and the each cost element when the sales units change. And ultimately, they can observe what will happen to the profit figures under each flexible budget. These flexible budgets are really important when the market conditions are volatile and unpredictable. Now let's discuss about flex budget. This is the most important budget we need to be aware of because we are going to calculate the variances using the actual amounts and the budgeted amounts. In order to calculate the variances, we need to be aware of the flex budgets. A flex budget is a budget that combines elements of both fixed and flexible budgets. This is based on a predetermined level of activity or sales volume, like a fixed budget, but it also includes the flexibility to adjust to changes in business activity, like a flexible budget. A flex budget can help companies plan for a range of activity levels. providing more accurate budgeting and forecasting. Simply, flex budget is the combination of fixed budget and flexible budget. Here is an example for flex budget. This column contains the fixed budget and this column contains the actual figures and this column contains the variances. Variances are the differences between actual amounts and budgeted amounts. In order to compare the actual and budgeted amount, we need to prepare a flex budget. This column contains the flex budget for this example. So why do we need to prepare a flex budget? This is because we need to compare the budgeted values and the actual values. When the budgeted sales units and the actual sales units are not the same, we cannot compare these figures directly. So what we have to do is we have to prepare a flex budget. This is how we prepare a flex budget. We use the actual sales unit for the flex budget. So 1900 of actual sales units will be the sales units under flex budget. So now what we have to do is we have to prepare the flex budget using the fixed budgeted amounts. These amounts. So we are going to consider the selling price per unit from the fixed budget. So it will be $25. Then we can calculate the sales revenue using these two figures. And then what we have to do is we have to find the direct material, direct labor, variable production overhead costs per unit. For an example, direct material cost per unit 6000, which is the fixed budgeted amount, divided by 2000. This is also the fixed budgeted amount. So this cost will be used to calculate the direct material under the flex budget. So the direct material cost under fixed budget is equal to 5700. This is equal to 1900 multiplied by this value. Likewise, all of the variable costs will be extracted from the fixed budget. So using those values, we can calculate the direct labor and variable production overhead. Then we have to calculate the fixed production overhead for the 1900 units. And finally, we have to include the non-production cost. Then we have to calculate the budgeted profit under flex budget. Now what we can do is we can compare the flexed amount and the actual amounts in order to calculate the variances. Variances are the differences between the flex and actual amount. So the sales units variance will be 0 because we change the sales units into 1900 under flex budget. And the selling price per unit is negative $2. Sales revenue negative 3800. Direct material variance is 380. Direct labor is negative 190. These two variances are 0. This means there is no difference between these values. And ultimately we can calculate the difference between the flex profit and the actual profit, which is 7410. We will discuss about variance analysis in greater detail in next videos. In order to calculate the variances, you need to have the understanding of flex budgets. This is why flex budgets are important. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.